All right, there we are. Good morning, everybody. We're still waiting 1 or 2 more minutes to make sure people can enter the room. There's already quite a nice audience lined up. Good morning, Ramin. Hope you're doing well. Maisoon, nice to see you as well. Alex. Feel free to say hi in the chat. And if you have any questions during the session for Hugo, feel free to either put them in the chat or in the questions section. Livestorm has a nice question section where we can also upvote the questions. So let's see how many questions come in today and if we even need the upvote functionality, but sometimes it can be nice. Just waiting 1 more minute. I'm still seeing some people entering the room. Hey, Nick, good morning. Good to see you as well. Hello, Claudia from Spain. Also from Singapore. All right, we got an international crowd today, Hugo. I think we're there. So let's get started with this session. Today's gonna be a session with Hugo Pereira, a close friend of mine. He used to be the Chief Growth Officer at EVBox. I think he worked over there for 7 or 8 years. Saw the company grow massively, built large teams, learned a lot about how to build teams and growth teams that last. And he created a really cool 9 principles framework, which he's going to share today with us. So yeah, without further ado, Hugo, you can take it away, or feel free to say hi or introduce yourself a little bit, give a little bit more background or context.
Yeah, no, sure. Thanks, Max, for the invite. I'm glad to see people from Spain to Singapore joining this session. I hope it will be fruitful. I really want to make this interactive, so that I don't want to be a PowerPoint drill down. I do want to share some nice principles about building teams that last, that stick with me over time. For the people that are meeting me for the first time, I consider myself a humanist technologist, which is a fancy word to say I really like to work with products, applications, or services that serve the well-being or humankind in any common or sense. I've not always been following that path that well. When you are building startups and scale-ups, you learn a lot along the way. But for the past 15 years, I've been taking leading roles on product marketing, even sales, for a diverse set of organizations. So quickly, my background is on business administration, so a little bit boring, but also organizational psychology. Fun fact: I actually started with aerospatial engineer as my first background. But I saw my colleagues and roommates on the business administration side having way more fun than me. And when you are young, you make some good or bad mistakes to be seen. I don't know what with the older life, but I jumped into business administration instead, following the engineering path. But from there, I got connected with Isaac, which is a youth run organization worldwide, where I grew within the organization until the global team. That actually gave me a lot of insights on the most up-to-date leadership and design thinking methodologies. And that shaped a lot of my leadership style, because at early 20s, you are managing a team of 20 people from 60 nationalities. You are responsible for a volunteering network of 60 to 100,000 young people from 100 countries. So you quickly learn a lot on your feet, which I think was instrumental for my growth. And then from there, I went from India to Belgium to the Netherlands, working for startups and scale-ups. My first startup was a disaster. I learned everything. I learned everything I didn't want to experience or do anymore in life. So it's not always is, it starts well your career, but actually gave me a lot of insights on what I don't want to experience on teams, which helped me build the principles I'll share with you. That was a business intelligence startup, which sounded fancy, and well, it's just as a fun story for the group before we start. At the time I joined, because I read on the newspaper that they had raised 1 million, and then the reality was that the incubator had raised 1 million, and the startup that I had joined only had 50 to 100K of that. So
what?
Yes,
How's
exactly.
how's that even possible?
Well, I found out afterwards, because I was like, "Oh, can I build a team because we have enough money?" It's like, no. It's you, and that's it. And then I found out after I was hired, so I was like, okay,
That's fraud. That's a scam.
Well, it was a misinformed approach of I learned quickly to ask the right questions when you join the startup after that. But then I spent 3-4 years with Talent Square trying to build a hiring software, which initially was more a CV builder, but became a hiring software. We actually did fairly okay, and we sold the company to an HR group afterwards. I was able to pay my wedding with a cash out, not much more than that. And then I met one of the potential investors, which was Christoph. He became CEO of EVBox. It was a 10-people company. And I joined EVBox to take the lead on go-to-market strategy, expand to new countries, and the marketing organization. And I grew within the roles we became a 700-people organization from 6 million to 100 million revenue. So it was a really nice trajectory where I was able to solidify and strengthen my thoughts on leadership. And that's what I want to share with you. So not much more of an introduction, but I think as a basis, before I talk about the principles, one of the biggest shifts I've made was the way I saw and I thought about what is most important when you are leading a team, a company. What you see on the left is what most organizations subconsciously do today. Yeah, they basically operate on the profit, or focus on profit first, or revenue first, then the product, then the people, and then the purpose. And you see those countless of times happening. And so you see this happening now on the mass layoffs that are happening worldwide. It's a clear example that ultimately, because the valuations are affected and because of a variety of other reasons, but you see companies firing people so that they can have better margins, so they can do a new funding round before things get worse. That's a clear orientation when you are worried about the profits and the product, and then the people and purpose come later. But
yeah, this stuff is I'm sorry to interrupt you, Hugo, but this stuff is happening a lot right now with mass layoffs in tech companies.
Yeah, it is. Klarna, Coinbase, even Tesla to a certain extent, you name it. Plus all the ones that you don't hear about. And because a lot of them are doing more gradual layoffs, where they do a little bit here, a little bit there, and then ultimately they are laying off the same 10 to 20% of people. Or they are just accepting their work culture is terrible, and they just let people leave until they reach a threshold of people that they actually can operate with, and then they rebuild from scratch.
Right.
What I notice is that, especially in tough times, is when you have to show that the purpose of the company is solid, and that you care about the people that work for it, and then they will build the product that you need, and then profits will come along. That's the way of operating. And this really affects on the decision making, even at the worst times. At the first startup, which was terrible, where they were really focused on profit from the very beginning, not even on growth, just profit, even how small it was, because the founders were very clear: we are here to build a business so that we can have a great lifestyle. So they didn't want growth, they didn't want revenue. Well, they wanted revenue, but they wanted specifically profit, because that's how they'll make their biggest personal turnover. Even in those times, I still made as many choices as I could to benefit the people I was working and or leading, even if it will be, at the cost of profit sometimes, just to retain them. And that's one of the biggest things. As long as you keep on your mind, does the team have a clear purpose and goals to work with? Do they have the ambition to grow? Do they have the right environment for you to build with? And then afterwards, is there an exciting product to develop? If you keep on asking those questions by that order, chances are high that you retain. And that's the thing. Whatever principles I'm going to share, you have your own. It's much better to keep focusing from the very beginning on retaining people and what drives them than to keep on, rebuilding the team.
Adding
so of course,
more,
yeah. And we have a team. We have a title about building growth teams that lasts. When I say that lasts, and you're going to see in one of the things I'm going to talk about, last doesn't mean that you have to keep them for as long as possible. You keep the people for as long as they make sense for the stage you are as a company or as a team. Sometimes they just outgrow the team. Sometimes they reach a ceiling, and it's also your role to help them move beyond the team or move beyond the company they are at. It's a bit of a different way of seeing things, but I can recount many times where I also had conversations with team members where I empower them to say, hey, you did everything you could, you learned everything you could at this team. It's your time to take over and to do better and to do bigger. And you're not going to find this here. If you are happy, continue. But if you want to grow, just be aware that I'll help you out. And I even help people find jobs while they were at my team to other organizations. Because it's fine. It's just they have to keep growing, and then that's also your role as a leader to build. It's more about building winners than winning yourself. That's one of the ideologies. And because I want to have an interaction with everyone, there's 9 principles that I've been developing over the years, not just at TV Box, but since the beginning, because you keep on learning and evolving. At the beginning, there were 5 principles, 6, 7, 8. You keep adjusting to your own style. And I keep myself being open to challenge them. But to share a few of them with the audience, it's, for me, the starting point is shared ownership. And that's something that I always build with the team, which is you as a team leader do not necessarily own by yourself the values, the vision, and the mission of the team. Which seems obvious, but it doesn't happen often. And the reason why it doesn't happen often, and I normally ask this, when you present or build the objectives for the team or the plan for the team, do you do it openly with the team or part of the team? When it gets too big, I understand you don't want to have 60 people or 100 people building a plan. It's complex. But you want everyone to feel part of it or to have a say in it. And it's not just asking feedback, it's actually building from the beginning. And that co-ownership can make quite a tremendous effect on the commitment of the team to deliver on it. And I normally know that, when you have shared ownership, when there's about 3 things that happen really well. The team understands really well what they are deeply passionate about. Yeah. So for example, at Talent Square, we didn't really care about the hiring software, because it was just another one. We were just using it as a medium or as a channel to disrupt the CV industry. We really wanted to, can we do something better than CVs? So you're deeply passionate about continuing to think of new ways to do it. So can people apply with videos, which was at the time not that common in 2012, 2014, applying with video is not common. Can we allow people to upload a video that the recruiter cannot escape from, a 30-second video? The mistake we've done is that there was not strong YouTube videos at the time, so they were uploading in our servers, which turned out to be a little bit heavy on our site. But passionate about that. So every time we had a chance to work a little bit on that was great. So for us was the disruption part. We were deeply passionate about finding small ways to disrupt things or the norm. What can you be the best at the world at? The how. So at EVBox, because I saw the company at a fast growing industry and I saw all the other competitors and what they were doing, I just thought there will be anyone that remotely gets close to how well we execute. That's what I wanted to be the best at the world at. And while it's a bit of a subjective view, but I still up to today, and I was talking this morning with Beltran, the head of marketing of EVBox, the VP of marketing at EVBox, that I hired to replace my role as I grew in the company. I was talking to him, and we were talking about the execution power of the team that was still there, still embedded. So for us, it was very clear from the beginning, we want to be the best executors. And we just build a team around that. High execution, high pace. And the last one is what makes your team culture excel. What is the driver? And that's not the same thing. The driver is that hidden part of the culture of your team that you notice that is what makes the team stick together. And for example, at EVBox, somehow what made the team stick together was really the sense of purpose. Yeah. So as long as the team is continuously tapping into the bigger purpose and the bigger bets, the stickier the team was. The more routine it will become on a day-to-day basis, the more boring they will get. So I knew that if I want to keep the team evolving, I cannot just do small increments. If you'll be like, oh, this year we're gonna do 20% more demand generation or sales qualified leads, I could see in the room that it was not really exciting. Yeah, okay. So I knew that numbers were interesting, were important, but they were more into like, what can we do that is, that really drives the industry forward? How can we get electric mobility to be the norm, not just the trends?
Maybe a short question in between, Hugo, because when I was working at Mr. Green, there was also a high sense of shared ownership, but I did also kind of feel that it was heavily tied with the mission of the company, which was obviously something that most people care about because it was accelerating the transformation to like sustainable mobility, which is like creating this sense of shared ownership might be more difficult at a company that has a bit of a boring business model, right? Because people don't really feel connected to that goal. Like how do you see that?
That's a fantastic question. It goes back to me on the D site, which was the decision-making software, where we quickly realized that I think none of us was excited about the software. Let's just put it that way. We just realized 3 months in that it's just not for us. Yeah, it was interesting for whatever customers were serving, which had quite a complex decision-making software. So, for example, airports had to make a strong decision on: we have 100 gates, X amount of planes. What is the most efficient way to to get the planes to the right gate? Okay, a software of that scale can help you to be like, okay, this is the most efficient route to get there. So there is value to the product, but there was just no excitement about it. We just felt that, are we really, if the software will disappear tomorrow, will it really make a difference? And you wonder about that. So then what I try to realize with my team is that we're not going to be excited about the product, but maybe you can be excited about what we can make. If you can be excited about making something boring slightly more exciting. Right. So for us, it was more tapping into the boredom. So the way we did it was more like, okay, the visuals, the design, the creativity around it. We just try to tap into things that, that for us ourselves, we're trying to just basically make the work fun. I think what was at that time the deeply passionate about was not the product, was because we lead in the marketing team, we just really wanted to see if marketing can empower boring products. And that was enough of a trigger for us to do things better. I still remember we were working until 4 a.m. on a new website. The excitement was not the product that the website was showing. It was just like, can we build a website that is exciting, fresh, modern, that elevates what we are selling? But down the line, I'm going to be honest, that is a timestamp.
Yeah.
You can do that for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
But after 1 year, there's just not enough shared ownership or passion or the how or the why or the driver that lasts. So you have to believe in what you're selling. You have to believe in what you're working on. And you have to feel minimally curious or empowered by it. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
Makes sense.
That's a reality. Yeah. But that's on the shared ownership. The other one is trust, which is obvious. Everyone talks about trust, and yet trust is one of the most difficult things to build on a team. And for me, trust goes along with, these 4 quadrants is a little bit strange, but I'll explain about it. You create and evoke trust when you tap into the happy moments and you acknowledge and celebrate them, because that's key, to acknowledge that, hey, this is good. This has been a good moment. That's the other hard part. You acknowledge the tough moments that the team is living, and you are vulnerable about those, either individually or not. So for example, I also do recall having a conversation openly with the team to say, hey, I'm on the personal side of life, I had some challenges. We've been trying to create family for a while. I'm very open about this. When you're creating family, it doesn't happen from day to night. Many times we think that just happens. So sometimes it can take years to start a family. And that takes a toll on you. So I told my team, look, I'm going through a tough phase. I just want you to understand that if sometimes I am not at my best, it's because maybe on my personal side, things are not going so well. And if by any chance you see that I'm projecting that on you, do let me know. That is how you also generate trust, by acknowledging that yourself might be going through a tough period. And it allowed them themselves to also share when they were going through a rough period, and able to just accept sometimes, or just listen and do nothing, because it's not your role to, as a team, to make the people happy. Yeah, like that's an important element of it. I don't see a role as a manager as about happiness. You have to create an environment where people can excel, but happiness goes so much beyond work that you cannot influence everything, but you can influence a part of it. That's on the top part. The bottom part, one of them is to allow people to engage, on what you are building. If you spend too much time on your mind and you don't share what's on your mind, what you're thinking about the future of the company, of the team, chances are that they'll feel, at least they'll not know what you are headed to. So, being open about how you generate energy and how you generate ideas. And the last one is just appreciation. It seems obvious, but to generate trust, you have to create a space where people can appreciate each other. So, and it's tough at scale. The reason is that at scale, it becomes more and more. When we were 6 people, we could do on a weekly basis a shout out. Okay, who had a shout out to everyone? Because the dynamic is small. So you trust each other. You become a small group of friends that are working together. But when you are 40 people, you have to wonder if, okay, the shout outs might become a little bit different. So you have to find different ways to continue having people appreciating each other. Could be through a software tool, could be through opening up the floor for appreciation, could be to create the routine on Slack or Teams or whatever internet you have. Or you find other habits that the team wants to build on. But generating trust, on the top layer is all about how emotions are shared and evoked on a team. On the bottom part is how the environment allows them to be engaged on that trust environment, and how appreciation is given. So that's on the trust side.
Beautiful.
On the mood for success, that's just a snapshot that I had when the team was a little bit smaller. You can see it was like about 10 people. The mood for success is all about you. Even if you talk frequently about failures, even if you open about learnings, people have to ultimately feel part of a winning team. You want to feel part of, like, wow, this is a team I can win with. What I noticed that as you scale up, there's more roles, more job titles, there's a little bit of more gaps being built. And I noticed with a lot of managers, they start to be and it happened to me a lot of times, I learned along the way that some of the times I was too focused on winning myself. And then the higher you go up, the more important is making other people winners. So, and the way to see this is how you give them the space to shine. So an example, at Talent Square with a small team, or even at TV Box at the beginning, I noticed that whenever there was a town hall, I was the voice of the team. What's celebrations of marketing, etc. I was the voice of, how marketing is doing, what we're celebrating of successes or not. That happened for the first 1 or 2 years when the team was small. But even then, I started to realize that a lot of the company was just coming to me for questions and not to my team. And that's when I start to realize that, okay, if I want this to succeed, they have to be the stars, not me. So then, I step out of the town halls, and if there was something related to product, was the product marketeer. If there was something related to content, was the content marketeer. They were the ones that were the face of their expertise in this case.
So they could step up a bit as well.
And that allowed them to start also feeling like I can win at this. I can also be of relevance, and to reduce the presence around the team leader, but more around the team itself. Even if they are not even team leaders, some of them were developers presenting. So that's the intent of winner. And what you see here is like fun things that we did. So you also have to create that mood for success. These were confetti. at the beginning of the year, we had a kickoff, and to celebrate, everyone had one confetti that they could pop whenever they feel that, yes, this is a high moment during this year, and fun
And
fact,
everyone got one, or
everyone got one. And with a written message from me, you can see here, I don't know if you can see the mouse moving, but you can see under each of the champagne bottles, which is not a champagne bottle, by the way, is a toy, but it pops confetti, and it had a written message from me to each one of them. So all of those things matter. And the thing I always find funny was that one of our team members got really, really excited, which was Mariska. She was heading the whole growth and acquisition, and she ended up becoming a founder herself of an agency, and she calls her agency Growth Confetti. So there's small elements that is nice to see later on.
Now I understand where that name comes from.
Yeah, see,
now I understand.
Everything comes together. I'm going to speed a little bit through so that you can go into more of the questions.
Sure.
But the other one is that a lot of people think about roles, which is important. Yeah, which kind of roles do you need to execute on your plans and ambitions? What I notice as a principle is for me to keep tapping into informal roles. Yeah, if the team is too much, this is like the Belbin test. But let's say the team is too much on the part of finisher, very executor. If you get too much on that space, then you don't have like the plans and the implementers, the people that think a bit longer term. So sometimes it's good to notice what are the informal roles of the team and how you balance them out and how you complement them so that you can start, building up different building blocks for the team. The fifth principle is more about setting the bar. Yeah. So the team standards are not the same over time. Yeah. The team grows, the team standards grow. And you have to continuously think as a team leader, what are the standards that we are setting ourselves to? And the standards are about behaviors, yeah? So a standard can be that, if we are having retrospectives at the end of the day, and if you want to have really good retrospectives, I want everyone to be present, yeah? So the standard is there's no laptops, etc. So we're going to be really focused. Or the standard is when you are doing planning, there's no work. We really focus on planning and putting our full attention to it. So it's all about fit for purpose. The thing with standards that they evolve over time, and it's all about progress. So if you want to generate progress, and this is 4 of them, because it's about the quarterly evaluation. So a lot of people do once a year, 360 evaluation, maybe twice a year. What I normally recommend, at least once a quarter, you need to keep on having a dynamic evaluation of your team. And what I put 1, 2, 3, 4, what you see there is actually a step up. The longer the year goes, the deeper the evaluation has to go. So Q1, you start, a bit informal, is the first part of the year. Then you increase the deepness on the second quarter. Third quarter, you increase the deepness. And the last quarter is a full evaluation. And also the reward has to keep increasing. So that's the interesting element of it. And when I say reward, it's just not financial, is also how the team is evolving with it. And also
And I'm sorry to interrupt you again, Hugo, but because I think it's a really interesting framework that you have here. How do you keep, because not everyone starts in Q1, right? So some people start in Q3, some people start in Q2, or like, how do you keep track of this in a spreadsheet? Is there a tool or?
Well, normally when you are a scale up, of course, tools make your job easier. But to be honest, when I was starting, it was Excel. I actually had an Excel. That's sometimes the basic. I just have an Excel, and normally, and I have to be honest, I have to go back to the template. But normally, I have an element that I focus on each of the blocks. So, for example, Q1, I just focus on how is it called? When in Formula One, maybe the group can help with the shot. When the Formula One, you do the first race off, yeah. So red, green, and everyone goes off. What do you call that? Is the acceleration? Is the kickoff? I don't know what is the word. It's not speed.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
But basically, I just focus on that first element. Yeah. How fast did you move from the starting grid? That's my first part of the quarter. The Q1 is all about how fast did you move. So all the questions I ask are nothing about performance development. It's just like, okay, you started the year full of ambitions. On the first quarter, from a scale from 1 to 10, how much of empowered are you still? compared to the start of the year when you come full of hopes. And then most people almost impossible. They're always a little bit lower, but it's more about some of the conversations led me to understand that some people started the year full of resolutions and they're like, you know what, I'm feeling a little bit, the first 3 months of the year and I already failed all my resolutions. I don't know. So I'm feeling a little bit down. So that helps me on the second quarter to know that this person needs some small victories to feel I'm back on track. Yeah. And then, okay, second quarter, you have to build it for yourself because you cannot copy this model. Every team is different. But I normally start with that. Second quarter, I look at, because between the second and third quarter is where I see normally the best performance, especially the second quarter. You are like geared up, the year is gone. So the third quarter is all about rest. Actually, July, September, August, I try to make sure that the team has some element of rest just because summer and I want to make sure of that. And the last quarter is the final sprint. It's like, okay, we are there. Let's get there, what it takes. Yeah. That's the elements of it.
Let's finish the year successfully and go for a good result, which gets us excited to do it again next year again.
And normally, the longer the year goes, the more funnel you need to be. So at the end of the last quarter, normally, if I have a conversation with the team, I said, forget everything you set up yourself to do. I just want to know there is one thing you don't want to compromise on, that you really want to achieve. And it's the only thing I ever ask them again. Because it's just funneling. It's like the end of the year. You have limited energy. If you still have 3 objectives and key results and all of these projects, you're going to burn. Because your energy is already like... You're already like powering through to close the year. You already want to go to Christmas, get the gifts and have a really nice happy new year and start again. Yep. So one thing, just tell me one thing that you want me to help you with. That's it. The way of working, here on the way of working, I don't want to spend too much time. I'm just going to share with you that you are not solely responsible for the way your team works. You don't have time to build everything for the team. You are responsible to create an environment of habit loops. So you have to help the team have a trigger through team assessments or surveys or questionnaires or post checks. And then you run, normally I run experiments with the team. People think about experiments with the team. Yes, sometimes I just ask the team, hey, I've noticed that lately, I don't know, the bonding is not that great. We've been a little bit scattered. Do you feel the same way or not? If you have surveys and tools to help you out, the better. But let's say that the team feels that, we are not doing so well on bonding and team activities on a social space. Okay, what can we try to do for the next 2 weeks, a small sprint, in order to see if something would work as a ritual? And they say, oh, you know what would be great if we start having a team lunch on a weekly basis. And then you just say, okay, for the next 4 weeks, you're going to have 4 team lunches, all with the whole team and see where it leads. And then we see if it becomes part of a ritual of the team or not. The way of working and the collaboration is the responsibility of the team, and help them. Let the team pick the ideas. Let the team share how the team can do better. The EBL, which I think Growth Tribe keeps saying it, always be learning. The only thing I say on the always be learning is if you don't empower your team to allocate time for it, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not even, and when I say allocate time for it, what I've learned is the only thing that as a manager, you almost can impose. That sounds strange, but if you don't say every Friday between, or whatever you want, every Friday between 1 and 3, I don't want meetings. I want you to be learning something. I want you to be reading a book. I don't care. You want to go for a bike, go for a bike. Want to listen to a podcast, listen to a podcast. I just want to make sure that you are learning and stepping up your game. And you can only do that if you keep on studying and having the time for it. During work, not after work or before work, during the work hours. So that's my only big advice, because of course you should always be learning, but unless you have the empowerment to learn, it's not going to happen. And the last one is, this is connected to trust, but it's about psychological safety. And it's more about 2 things. One of them is that everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about. And you should keep that in mind. So for that reason, you just should care, should have empathy for your team, because it's tough for everyone. And the other one is that you are, the world doesn't pay attention when we exhale. So if you want to create psychological safety, you have to welcome vulnerability, because people need to be safe to be vulnerable. And you have to acknowledge when the team is, actually excelling. And if you do both, chances are high that you create a psychological safety. So it's almost like everyone is a little bit of a duck with the shell of a turtle. So duck is very, is very shy and he's feels a little bit, I don't know, say like fragile, but it has a very strong shell that can be built around it to be strong. So that's kind of the dimension here. And the last one for us to go into the questions and the conversations is about fulfillment. And I already shared a little bit with the group about this, which is about you have to help your team evolve. Sometimes it means elsewhere, and that's just okay. You want to see your team, the ones that want to take leading roles, you want to see them growing and taking leading roles. Is a moment of pride. Even if they don't take leading roles, you want them to see crafting and evolving their craft. You want to always them to, your best gift as a team leader is to see other ones stepping up and being better versions of themselves than they ever have been. And that's what I always keep saying. People join a company or accept a role for what they can do. Is about the responsibilities, but they stay for what they can be or become. Your responsibility as a manager is to ensure that they can be or become their best selves by the craft that they put at work, but also by the personality that they have. And not everyone has to become a leader.
No.
Not everyone has to become a manager. Some people, I can share two stories about this. One of my first hire, I noticed that she had a lot of potential from the very beginning. It reached a phase where I had a conversation with her. I said, there are two paths for you. One, you can continue developing your craft as an outstanding brand marketeer and content communications craft person. And I'm going to give you all the possibilities for you to create the best craft here or empower you to build the best craft somewhere else. Because at some point in time, you cannot write about electric cars or mobility. You have to write about several things if you want to be better at your craft. You get bored of writing about the same things over and over again. Or you take a path of becoming a manager and you're going to take a lead on leading a team. That's another path. And she actually took about 1 or 2 weeks to think about which path she wanted to take. And I said, what's going to happen is that I'm going to help you with either or. But if you go on the craft, I'm going to have to hire a manager to build a team, which you're going to report to. And I'm going to make sure that you are part of the process. They can trust who's going to be the hire. And if you become a manager, I'm going to try to help you and coach you to become a better manager. And if it doesn't work, not to worry, you're not going to be prejudiced by it. Because it's also important to say, hey, if it doesn't work as a manager, that's fine. Which comes to my second story. Another of my team leaders that grew had a lot of potential, but he realized that he just does not have energy to coach and lead people. It doesn't give him energy. He was like draining energy every week on, I just spend my time resolving people issues. I'm so tired. I don't want to do that. So his realization was like, that's okay. You can still be a leader. You're just going to be a different type of leader. So I said, we're going to put you, we have some space to hire more people. We're going to hire someone that is an actual people manager that loves that. And we're going to give you the space to just focus on the strategic thinking and the innovation for the team. And that's fine. So that you have to keep varying on that. And that's the last part of the principle. And I think I took a little bit long time. I hope we can engage the audience.
No, it's all good, all good. Thanks for sharing this framework. I think it's relevant for almost any CEO, founder, manager, any person that wants or needs to build a team. These 9 principles are definitely something to take into account. There were already a few questions in the chat. There were a couple of questions that were sent in beforehand through the type form. If there's any more questions, feel free to put them in the questions section or in the chat section, so we can go over them. I'll just quickly remove this right here. Yes, so we have a little bit more screen space. I'll go through the questions first. All right, let's see, order by upvotes. Okay, from Nick Dauma. I'm gonna actually start live. How do you define the standard of performance for your sales team when launching a new product as a company for B2B SaaS?
Interesting. Well, so the natural tendency will be, of course, I think everyone will tell you about, it's going to be about the new sales, the pipeline, the revenue, etc. So depending on the type of B2B SaaS companies, when I'm looking at the sales teams, what I want to hear about of the set of standard is how the customer feels about the interaction with the sales organization. So I would look at the standard of performance more about the behaviors around customers. So, and by behavior about customers, I always think about everyone has a CRM, and the biggest pain point of CRMs is the salespeople putting the data of what's happening with the customers into the CRM. It's always a pain point.
The operations.
The operational part is not there. Either they want to be selling, and all the CRM stuff, you leave it for later, block an hour, and then just add everything that they already forgotten. Yeah. So on a standard of performance for sales organizations, beyond the traditionals, which I'm not going to touch into, I think you can only level up the performance of sales organizations if you really talk about how we're going to nurture and delight customers. And then you can have a conversation of performance of saying, at the end of every call, we send a thank you message. Or if a customer says, I'm not interested, I know it could be one, you just thank and saying, if anything changes, this is my phone number and I'll not bother you anymore. It's not another nurture flow to keep on doing them or saying another note or ebook. Here is an ebook, and if you're still interested, so I'll say it depends on what is your standard of performance, what works as a work and as a thin line, but I'll say everything about the behavior that you believe that makes customers think, this was a pleasant conversation. Yeah. So that is the interesting thing. So I'll have a conversation with your team and just say, hey, what do you think were the best practices that you have seen that customers were happy about with the sales organization, and how can we implement those in the team? So maybe say on a weekly basis, we say, what was the best customer answer to our interaction? If you don't have a customer answer, it means that you are not having meaningful interactions. And maybe you focus that sales organization into meaningful interactions, and that maybe leads to more sales. That would be my small take. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a very good answer, Hugo. I definitely agree. Like defining the standards of performance for a sales team, especially in the early days, especially in B2B SaaS, typically complex products, typically new products people haven't heard of before. So benchmarks are very different, or can be very different. It could at least be something to aim for, but not, or to keep as a pulse the benchmark, like benchmark conversion rates from like pipeline stages. But definitely start with the principles, like, hey, how do we want to treat our customers, or how have you been treated in the past where you thought, hey, this was nice, and can we optimize for that and keep track of how it's going by looking at some sort of benchmark data.
Yeah. Some of the best salespeople I've met, they were not the highest revenue makers for EVBox. Right. But they were the best sales organizations. Why? Because every time I talk to the customers of their sector, of their region, they always had the highest eNPS. And the ones that were making the most money were the most unhappy ones. Why? Because the more performing, and that just happened in EVBox, was one of the errors of scaling up, which was the higher focus on the growth and the revenue, the more transactional the conversation became with the customer. Yeah. And the more hustling it happened. So for example, Borja in Spain was not much from a company that was doing 100 million, maybe it was doing 2. Irrelevant for the company. But you talk to all the Spanish partners and customers, 30, 40 net promoter score, because they just felt, we just love the team. Just so great. They were doing golf tournaments, like that was the only time I approved golf tournaments on a marketing budgets, and that was just because he just knew that I want my customers to feel they are the best treated. And he had the standards of sales all about the behavior. He never talked about numbers. Every time he was coming, he was saying, you know what I did with the customer the other day? We went on an electric drive. I went to a meeting, half an hour was a meeting, half an hour was like, you want to drive my car? And he went to drive the car. So it was all about, for him, the standard of performance was like, I want the customers to experience what I'm experiencing. That was kind of the standard.
Also got like the favor factor, that people just liked him, and
Oh yeah.
and they
He
just
was
liked him,
highly.
and then they trust what he says and what he's selling. So they're like, oh yeah, okay, we'll do that as well.
Half of the time he was also saying nonsense, but it was just nonsense to a lot of people, so it just worked out. Anyway, let's go to the next one to get more questions
next
here.
one. Let's see. Right. Click live answer. To what extent do you document roles and responsibilities, and at what team size, do you start doing it? To what level?
So fun fact, so fun. It's not so much. So the habit of documentation, my feedback is always start from the very beginning, and that's just because I'm really organized as from a structural point of view. So it's just embedded in me. So my folder structure was from the beginning, for example, super organized. Folders by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's cleaned. It just drives me nuts if I cannot find things well and if I cannot explain it. So maybe not the best person to answer, because by nature I'm I want to see knowledge pass from the mind to the paper. But speaking of that, I think it's for the people that start joining a team and need to understand how the team works. I would say anything beyond a team of 5 starts to require the effort beyond that. So below that, it's almost like you can, how it is in multitasking, you can have 7 things happening at the same time at most. So normally I say that the same principle for documents of roles of responsibilities. Yeah. If you already have a team of 7, chances are very high that you already need to do a lot of knowledge management and rules documentation. So I'll say with 1, 2, or 3, don't really need it. It's I don't say a party of 4 for lunch doesn't require much. It's very informal. Anything more than a party of 4 at a restaurant, you already have questions about the bill, who pays what, etc. So same rule applies for a team. Yeah. More than a party of 4, different flavors. Start documenting the roles and responsibilities. One thought though, I would, because at startups especially or small teams things vary so much, I would look more at what everyone contributes to rather than roles and responsibilities. I think sometimes that helps more. So, but that's the difference, is that roles and responsibilities is this person is responsible for website editing, copywriting, blah, 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 blah. But contribution is this person adds value to the team because she's responsible for everything that elevates the content that we produced. That's it. So anything content, this is the contribution. So contribution is important to the goals. But yeah, to answer the question, I think party of 4 you can handle. Beyond the party of 4, flavors evolve. Some people are vegan, some people only eat fish, some people want wine, some people want hard liquor. So make sure you get to know who does what. Yeah.
Cool. Great. Okay. I'll next up from Goran. How do you assess your team's upskilling, self-assessment, or do you have a support to follow that? Sorry, came late. All right. How do you assess your team's upskilling?
And well, that's honestly, that is a really tough one. I don't think there's a proven way to assess upskilling. Normally, the best way to see it, you just see if the work is improving, then you know that the team is upskilling. But yeah, I do not have, to be honest, I don't know if I can assess a team upskilling. I think the only thing I can evaluate if the space I give for a learning is being applied or not. I think that's the only thing I can see about. And what helped with when a team was a little bit, let's say 12 people, it's still possible to do that. Even with more, it becomes harder. Everyone on a weekly basis could bring a topic to the retrospective to teach to the other ones.
Yeah.
So sometimes people said, hey, for the last 1 month, I've been studying these. I want to share with you the findings. And that was a way to see, hey, these people are actually learning, taking notes. And maybe I can say that, if you have a tool that does e-learning or LinkedIn learning, you can see your team members and how many courses they are taking and how many they are completing. You have those stats, but just because you do a course doesn't mean that you can apply it. Yeah, and with upskilling is more about the application and the learning. So to be honest, not really. I just try to see if the space I give for learning is being applied, and the best way you can do that is to ask the people to open up and say, what have you been learning and what you have studied, or just have the space for them to see if they can go and train themselves. So exactly. Just give the budget and demand them. That the budgets of training are almost never taken in full. So just make sure that the people say, you have to invest this budget on something for yourself, whatever it is, and then you just see the outcome of it.
You see what they do
in any
with
shape or form.
Yeah,
but it's a hard one. I honestly, I wish I could say that there is a formal, proven way to assess it, but I'm sorry to say that if there is one.
Maybe it's not even that necessary. I mean, I guess if you have some sort of like a periodic survey in place, you could put in a question like, how do you feel about like growth in your personal skills? And then if people like say like, hey, I'm happy about that or not, then maybe you have at least some sort of data point which could then lead to a conversation. But other than that, like tracking which skills are being gained is going to be quite difficult.
Yeah. Well, one good thing is that you should try to upskill yourself. So if you're not doing yourself, you'll not know the pain point of other people.
Yeah. Cool. Right. I'm going to close this one. I saw a nice one here as well from Claudia. I'm going to live answer it. Do you see it positive to meet with your team after working hours? For example, propose a meal on Friday, some beers, etc. Some managers see it as too close, but I like that my team values me for who I am and when I can contribute to them instead of an authority figure. Nice question. What do you think, Hugo?
Two things. One of them, I think we have to respect the different ways of leading. Yeah. So if you tell me, do you need to meet your team after working hours to build a social, like a social interaction or a friendship? Not necessarily. Not everything has to happen outside of work. Not everyone has the ability of it. Now, I personally like to build close relationships with my team. So that means that, yes, I do go for lunches, beers, interactions with them. I want to interact with them after working hours. I want to know about their personal lives within the extent of understanding to them that I am a friend, but I'm also their boss. And that has to be clear. And it's important that because there are two things that can happen. One, there's just no way of you having a team that grows and not having affinity for more people than the other ones. It's just natural, yeah? You just have to make sure that nature does not compromise the development of the team and the trust within the team. Because it did happen to me, that I was very close to a manager and one of their team members was leaving the team. And I asked him, like, is there anything you'd like to have feedback, etc.? I could have helped you out. We had a great conversation and he said, look, many times I thought of coming to you, but we were so close to this manager that, I overthought a little bit about it, but I should have gone to you, but I just felt that maybe I'll have created a bad situation for me, which is a perception from the past. Why? Because in the past that didn't work for him. And I told him, no, like for me, work is work. If I have to reprimand my manager, which might be a close friend, I will do that. So I mean, like, it's good. I think it's important to be close with the team, but I think the boundaries have to be understood because, you're still their boss at the end of the day, And
I think there's also a difference, obviously, between going out with the team as a whole to have like a quarterly dinner or something, or one-on-one, which is
exactly, which is different. And I did team buildings on a quarterly basis. I did 2 big team buildings twice a year, from everything from we did the climbing to I was always trying to innovate on my team buildings, which the team was always very excited about because they knew I always wanted to surprise them with things they will not expect. I had magic shows.
I had list of all the team building activities that you've done in the past, because I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of like people working HR and people operations that would love to get all these examples in.
Doing team building, it's an art, and people have to understand. I never do team building just for fun. Sorry, the internet went down. For me, team building, I always do 2 days. First day is all about work. Yeah, first day is always about how you're doing as a team. We look at the plan, look at ideas, we crash the plan, we give feedback, we do a lot of workshops, design thinking. We look at leading a marketing team, for example, look about what are the latest things on marketing that make sense for us or not. Let's explore, let's deviate. The first day is all about, especially on those twice a year, is always about revising the plan for the second half of the year or building the plan for the new year. Yeah, so November, December team building or a June, July revision. That's the first day. The second day, it's all about fun, but even within the fun, you still add elements to the team. So for example, on the last one, we went climbing in the morning. We did a climbing class. And afterwards, I made an agreement with the climbing gym to offer a discount to everyone who wants to continue climbing classes. And after we went for lunch, and during lunch, we talked for about 2 hours about the team values, personal values, team values. And after that, we went to a magic show to learn how to do magic. Then we had dinner, and then we go to parties. So all those things are more normal, but you build up so people know that the team building was also about bonding. It's not just like going for a boat ride and beer. That's not team building. That's just bonding. You have to always build both.
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, that's my view. If it works for you, if your team likes Claudia, if your team likes to go out with you, go out. If you like it and if your team finds it good. That's all fine.
Yeah. Let's see. Another question from Goran, actually. A thought on the 4 days work week. Can it be more productive for teams or depends on the company? Well, that's an interesting question.
Oh, don't say not. Doesn't even depend on the company. It depends on the team. I think so. If I look back, could my team have done the same output with 4 days a week? Yeah, absolutely. But that's because the team was high on execution.
Yeah.
And I knew that to have developed that. Now, yeah, it's a little bit of a question of if you build that. I will always say, if I'll build a 4 day a week, I'll build it as an experiment. I'll say for the next 1 month, we're going to work 4 days a week and then learn to see those effects, because you cannot just, everyone now is doing like a 4 day a week makes sense. A 5 day week makes sense. And 9 hours, everyone is talking about that. And I just say, you know what? Just try for your team or for your company, see if it works, see the effects. And then, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Or if it works for some teams, the challenging part is that you cannot have some teams of the company working 4 days and the other ones 5 days and the other ones 3 days. It creates a little bit of a challenging, yeah? So, yeah. And I always say that the culture is built from the ground up. So if you build your company from the beginning with 4 days a week, chances are you will make it work because you just made the whole environment around it. But if you want to change the game halfway through, you're going to find a lot of practices that might be hard to do that. The challenge with the 4 day week is that people have to unlearn a lot before they can actually make it successful. And the process of unlearning is really tough. Yeah. So I would say if a thought on it can work, for whoever company or team that wants to try it out, really run it as an experiment, see the results, and just have everyone very clear that if it doesn't work, everyone goes back to the 5 day week. Or maybe don't start, maybe just start with, every second week, 1 day is off. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or just.
I saw that one as well. And I thought that could make sense. I think you also need to have some sort of team volume to be able to do it. And it also can highly depend on role, which makes it more difficult because you don't want to discriminate on role in these types of things. But let's say you're a company, you have one customer support manager.
Yeah.
Like how and you want to operate 5 days a week because it has a direct impact on your revenue and your service offering and your promise to your customers, which you made probably on pricing pages and in contracts and everything. And then we're gonna work 4 days now. We're not gonna help our customers. Like that's not gonna work. So obviously there are ways around it, or maybe hire another person, or work in in shift, or come up with something else. But it will have an impact on how you manage everything.
Yeah. I'm not fond of this extreme views, either or. Like you just have to try out for your business and see if it works. And if you do from the beginning, high chances it works. It's like Buffer with transparency. Should everything be transparent? For example, Buffer built from the beginning with transparency. Salaries are public, metrics are public. You can see how much the CEO wins, how much people win. But it was built from the very ground up with depth. If halfway through the game you just say, hey, here is everyone salary and here is everyone metrics, a lot of people don't know how to read that. They might say, oh, why is this guy winning more? And because a lot of things are already there. So I'll just say, if you have a team or if you have a company that is able to unlearn quickly and redesign quickly, maybe that works. But if you want to try out, but try it as an experiment, very clearly set up to everyone. Otherwise, it's going to backfire.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to close this down. Okay, it's 12 o'clock over here, so I think it's time to end this session. There are still a couple of questions left open in the chat. I mean, if you want it answered, I'm pretty sure you can send Hugo a connection request on LinkedIn.
You can just send a question.
Send him a DM. I think he's going to be happy to answer. Thanks everybody for joining. I learned a lot from you, Hugo. So I want to thank you again for sharing your 9 principles framework with us today. We're also going to share the recording and some clips of this session on social media, so everybody can rewatch it through those channels. Any last words from you, Hugo?
No, hope it was fun for everyone. And if anyone has any questions, just connect me on LinkedIn. Make sure you say that you come from the webinar, because sometimes it's good to give context when you are connecting with someone.
Definitely.
All right. Thanks, Max, for this.
Okay.
And,
thanks, everybody. Thank you, Hugo. Bye-bye.
Bye.